It's beer o'clock on Real Ale Craft Beer. Calvin Phillips has sent us another beer to the channel to review. And as always, these beers are sent to test us. This is not a lager. This is not a stout, a regular stout that you might find down your pub. This is something that is being purposely sent to push my kind of boundaries in what I kind of like in beer. And I appreciate that. I really do appreciate that, because the more I realise it, the more I realise that in myself, I'm becoming more comfortable in just going, do you know what? I'll just have a lager, or I'll just have a bitter, or I'll just have a pale ale, or a plain saison, or a New England IPA. And what I like about this channel is that there's people out there watching my channel, and there's people out there watching where we're going with the channel, and they're going, maybe you need to be pushed a little bit. Maybe you need to be kind of like, broken out of your comfort zone a little bit. And that's where Calvin Phillips comes in, and I totally appreciate it. This is from Vault City, and this is their Brewery Limoncello Sorbet. It's a 7% ABV modern sour beer in a 440 milliliter can. On a personal level, if I seen this in my local bottle shop, I'd probably just go, nah, I'm not going to bother. But that's where my laziness comes in. That's where I need to be pushed. And that's where, again, Calvin Phillips comes in. From Rita's Pantry. So, without further ado, let's get this beer out into a glass and see what we get. I've got an IPA glass. I can't imagine it making too much of a difference. See, now, there was a part of me with a blue can and being called Blueberry. There was a part of me that's thinking, oh yeah, this is just going to be a blue beer. This is going to be a right old kind of blue beer. But it's not. It actually looks really good. I'm not going to mince my words or shy away. This looks really good. Thick, creamy, smoothie-like, two-finger, slightly pinky head. But then the liquid itself is just, wow. It looks like a smoothie, doesn't it? It looks like something, you're in Spain and you want something with a funny umbrella in and a sparkler, a bit like Del Boy's drinks, Let's get the aroma. So the idea of these beers is that you get a lot of the sourness from the actual fruit itself. It's not necessarily kind of like soured in a Belgian way with lactobacillus or a natural kind of sour fermentation process. It's just fruit sour. And it's a bit like the way of thinking with the IBUs with IPA. You can get something at 10 IBUs and it'll be not very bitter at all. And then you get something at 100 IBUs and it'll be really, really bitter. And it'll be like, whoa, It's a bit like thinking, the same kind of thinking where you got these kind of naturally fruited sour beers. And then something with lactobacillus in, which is really sour and kind of brought on in a very kind of like man-made way, if you like. The malt's being blocked from the sweetness. They're blocking the sweetness from the malt and they're sending the malt down a sour path with the lactobacillus. So, lots of fruit. Lots of blueberry, lots of lemon. It reminds me of something. It reminds me of like a Cointreau or something like that. let's dive in. Cheers, everybody. There's a massive part of me that says, what don't you like about this beer? What can you possibly not like about this beer? I mean, it's tons of lemon. Loads and loads of lemon. It's thick, it's creamy, like with all that kind of fruit. It's very smoothie like on the taste. There's loads of blueberry. It's a lovely, lovely drink. It's a lovely, lovely drink. But if you noticed, I'm calling it a drink. It's as far away. Right. If somebody handed me this and said, enjoy this fruit cocktail, I'd go, yeah, fruit cocktail, job done. But it's not. It's not a fruit cocktail. And this is where it all falls apart for me. It's not a fruit cocktail. It's supposed to be a beer. This is the most delightful fruit cocktail that you'll ever want to drink in your life. It is full of juicy lemon flavours and blueberry, and there's a little bit of sourness coming through. And it's fantastic. It really is. On a beach in Spain, somebody handed me that cold. Yeah, job done. That's gone in a second. That's a fly down, gone while it's cold. But at the same time, it's not a beer. For me, I'm going to stick by my guns here. It's not a beer. They call it modern sour beer. Modern sour beer. I mean, this is as far away from beer as you're ever going to get. And although I was talking about comfort zones earlier on, me being comfortable with comfort zones, and I'm okay with my bitters, and I'm okay with my saisons, and I'm definitely okay with my lagers these days. The reason why I drink so much lager these days, the reason why I drink so much German Pilsner and German beers in general, is because of the Reinheitsgebot. And call me boring, call me whatever you want if you like, but the reason why the Reinheitsgebot was put in place was to stop this type of thing from happening. The blurring of the lines. When does a beer stop being a beer? When does a beer start becoming a cocktail? And again, I don't dislike the drink. I'm not going to call it a beer. I'm not going to call this a beer. Vault City might be very happy calling this a modern sour beer, but I'm not willing to call this a beer. I'm going to call this an alcoholic drink. I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it as an alcoholic drink. In fact, it's blooming lovely. It's lovely. It really is. But call this a beer? Nah, you're pushing. You're pushing too much. The trouble is with the UK, it's a big problem. The big problem with the UK is that all of the macro brewers are reducing their ABVs because there's no real guidelines, there's no real rules. It's just that the government's putting in place like beer thresholds and there's a lot of taxation coming in as of August 2023. So Leffe's gone from 6.6 to 6% ABV. Carlin's fallen to 4. Foster's is 3.7% ABV. Everything's dropping. Everything's dropping. There's no clear guidelines. There's no clear direction. What I think what needs to happen is that there needs to be a law. There needs to be a clear law in, first of all, what beer is. And then there needs to be a law in protecting beer, protecting our heritage in beer. If you go to Germany, so many of their old industrial brewing buildings are still in existence as brewing buildings. That's because the German government recognised that it all needs protecting. It all needs to stop becoming kind of like flats, housing. Here in the UK, I would say for the last 2 years I've looked at Brains Brewery closed their plant 7 miles down the road, which was a wonderful plant. It wasn't their original plant, but it was a wonderful plant that they brewed in, and that's all going to become apartments and God knows what. And there's no respect. There's no respect. They just rip the heart out. Rip the heart out, rip the heart out. There's no respect. All of the brewing buildings have been turned into flats. There's no kind of like protecting what beer is. Even though we are one of the most kind of like influential beer brewers countries in the world, there's no minister. There's no minister. I would say I'm quite kind of like happily stand here and say, make someone like Pete Brown a minister in brewing. A minister, he knows his stuff. He knows his stuff. Make him a minister. Put him in government. Put him in place to protect beer. Put him in place to protect and put it in a Reinheitsgebot. Bring in some kind of like UK Reinheitsgebot. That's what this country needs. This country really desperately needs something very soon. Otherwise, we're just gonna capitulate as a brewing nation. I know I've gone off on the bandwagon here with this particular beer. I know I've kind of like gone on a bit of a slalom ski slope chat with this beer, but I'm pretty sure the guys at Vault City Brewing Company, they found a gap in the market. They're very popular at the moment. They sell out at beer. I've been at beer festivals where they're selling out their beer by the first hour of them opening their bar. And I totally get it. I totally understand it. I like it myself. There's no denying it. There's no denying it. I would love to drink this alcoholic beverage on a beach in Spain. There's no doubt about it. But to call it a beer is too much of a stretch. It's way too much of a stretch. Beer needs protecting. Call me old-fashioned. Comments in the comments box. Make Pete Brown the minister of beer in this country and let him write up his own kind of Reinheitsgebot rules as what beer should be, clear guidelines and some protection from all of these old breweries being turned into flats. Rating for the beer then. Rating for the beer. So I have to rate it as a beer because they've called it a beer. I'm going to give it 2 ratings. I'm going to give this alcoholic drink 2 ratings. My first rating is as a alco poppy punch-like cocktail, and that would be the most amazing thing in the world. It's absolutely fantastic. It's a 9 out of 10. 9 out of 10 for what this alcoholic beverage is. But as a beer, yeah, it falls completely short of what I know beer to be. And so that for that reason, as a beer, I give it a 1 out of 10. It's a 1 out of 10 from Real Ale Craft Beer. I hope you understand. I hope it wasn't too technical for you. Please put your comments in the comments box. Subscribe to our daily beer and food reviews. Give us a big fat thumbs up. Boom. Cheers.